Okay. Good morning, committee members and other parties of interest. This oral presentation for RPS-25-00208, Predictive Modeling for Pipeline Failures, is being held in part by means of communications media technology. Active participation will be for committee members and presenting firms only. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public and all other interested parties after the meeting has ended. Please be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect. All meetings and correspondence must include me. My name is Ethan Curtis, and I'm the senior buyer for this project. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and we've posted online at the conclusion of the meeting. At this time, I'll ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chair.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Walton, the committee chair. I work for the Water Resources Department and the Asset Management team.
Andrew Maslin. I also work for the Water Resources Department and the Asset Management team. Scott Phillips, to work for Asset Management and Water Resources.
Okay, I will also ask the non-voting committee advisor to introduce themselves.
David Riggins. I'm the project manager for the asset management section, program manager.
Fantastic. Our presenters will have a total of 45 minutes, 30 minutes for presentation and 15 minutes for Q&A. I will be timing your presentation and will announce when there are 2 minutes remaining. Immediately following the presentation, we will move on to the question portion where we'll also track your time and provide a 2-minute warning. AECOM Technical Services, you may begin your presentation. I will start when David speaking.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. Good morning, Chair. My name is Samir Al-Khatib. I am the principal in charge on this project. And with me, I have Chris Macy and Tanya Simmons. Unfortunately, they weren't able to join us here in person because of pre-planned vacation, but we dragged them into this and we made it work, and they're here joining us virtually. So I will be talking to you today about our really deep technical expertise and the team we have, but more importantly about the proven track record that we have and the long history in doing predictive modeling. A project just like this one for cities and counties across the US and really globally. So we're really excited today to demonstrate our technical expertise and our proven approach on how we're going to move the county from reactive to proactive infrastructure planning starting today. So on this slide, I want to begin by highlighting why AECOM is uniquely pre-positioned for this work. And it's really mainly because one is we are not new to predictive modeling. You'll hear from Chris Macy. We've been doing this for a very long time, almost longer than anybody. And number two, we're not new to the systems you use here in the asset management. We know all the products, GIS products, hydraulic models. Tanya will get into that more. But also, we use tools like dashboards and Power BI to take that data from all these places and make it really easier to understand and analyze it so you can use it among the team members. And lastly, I want to talk about the proven track record. So why this is important to you, why do you want a team like AECOM that hasn't done it a really long time, is because really we're ready to go, right? Faster implementation, there's a steeper learning curve, but more importantly, it's really no surprises and there's no rework. Yeah, we're really ready to hit the ground running. So the next slide, Chris, if you don't mind. So I want to talk about us three and why we're unique to our team. And this is just us three here, but we have a deep bench. So myself, my career is in asset management and program management. I still do that for many clients. I live in Lutz in Hillsborough County, so I'm really close. You can find me. Just can come and find me. I'm ready. But more importantly, I was in your shoes. I used to work for the city of Baltimore. I was intertwined when they started their asset management office. So I really know what you guys are looking for. I understand your needs and the challenges. And my job here to make sure Tanya and Chris have the resources they need to get this job done on time and on budget. And more importantly, that we're doing really quality work that meets your expectations. Next, Chris Macy is our technical lead. So Chris is the foremost expert in predictive modeling. He really is a known entity in predictive analytics. Many awards to his name. He's been contributing author to many of the standards that we all use at AWWA. Most recently, there's a National Pipeline Conference. I'm sure some of you will be attending in a month or so here in Tampa. We'll be presented with a couple of awards. One of them is the 2025 Award of Excellence in Pipelines. So we're really excited to drag you into our success and make you our partner in this field. Next. Thank you. Tanya Simmons. Tanya, she's been living in Hillsborough County for a long time, really. And she's been doing asset management her entire career. And she really not new to this or predictive modeling. The really unique thing about Tanya is because she's here, she really knows the geology, she knows the geography, she knows what's going on, how it's going to work, she knows Hillsborough County. So she's the PM for you. And her job is to be your point of contact on this job, on this work. And she really is amazing in what she does. So I'm going to let her speak to that, to our team and to our approach. Tanya? Tanya, you're on mute. Tanya, on mute.
Thank you, Sammer.
There you go.
Thank you for letting me be here with you today remotely. As Sammer said, this trip was planned a long time ago. It's overseas, so thank you. So here in this slide, we have our org chart, and it's showing our key team members for each of the specialties that's needed for the success of this project. And they are some of the best in the industry. Arguably, Chris is the best in the industry, period. And we're all committed to partnering with the county on this project, and we're very excited about the opportunity. Additionally, as shown in the table to the left of the chart, we have numerous specialists who are available to support our team. So just rest assured, we have full technical coverage and plenty of redundancy to complete this project. And we can even do it in an expedited schedule that does not sacrifice a single ounce of the quality that you rightly deserve. Next, please. So AECOM has performed condition assessments in all 50 U.S. states, all 10 Canadian provinces, and into every U.S. and Canadian territory. We've also performed condition assessments in every continent except Antarctica, and only because they don't have pipes there. And this map and this table here, we're showing you where we have built advanced predictive and optimization models for water pressure pipe. So the dots on the map are for the water pressure pipe. And then also we have also done modeling for gravity sewer pipe, which we understand you hope to eventually bring these other water source pipes into your predictive modeling. So the models that we've built, they drive rehab and replacement for the smaller diameter pipes and condition assessment programs for the larger and higher consequence water mains. And look, the models that we've done have encompassed the entire inventory for each of the cities that are shown here. In total, that's 60,000 miles of pipe. And to wrap your head around that number, the circumference of the Earth is 25,000 miles. So the length of pipes we have modeled could wrap around the Earth twice and then some. So you're maybe thinking, well, this is great AECOM experience, but are these people on my team? And the answer to that is yes. And here in this matrix are showing our key team members that have worked together on so many of the predictive modeling projects in the previous slide. Chris, in fact, has worked on all of those in the previous slide. And this team has worked together so many times that really everybody, they already understand exactly what they need to do and exactly how their work contributes, not only to the accuracy of the model results, but also to transparency and auditability, which we assure through detailed technical documentation. Next. Here in this slide, down the flow chart below on the bottom half of the slide is an overview of our predictive modeling program. This is a standard approach. It's proven and it's been successfully implemented dozens of times. Overall, our solution is going to evolve with your needs and reduce the need for future updates. And this model is going to give you what you need to prioritize condition assessments and perform capital planning. Next. So now I want to point out how our proposed solution is superior to our competitors and how these differentiators benefit the county. First, we're doing this with strategic foresight, as we always do. So our solution includes a scenario analyzer that's going to help the county evaluate the long-term impact of pipeline failures under different investment and maintenance options. And it also supports, of course, more informed, forward-looking capital planning in that respect. We're going to build on what you already own. So rather than standing up an entirely new platform or platforms, we're going to build directly on your existing Azure, Oracle, and Microsoft investments. And that means less complexity, faster implementation, and a lower total cost now and then also in the future. Third, this is going to be full transparency, no black boxes. We believe very strongly that public agencies should own their intelligence. So our algorithms are fully open source, they're explainable and auditable, and that is obviously the opposite of a black box. So that means that you can trust how the model works because you'll understand it, defend it in front of stakeholders, and adapt it over time. Also our modeling approach is future-proof and platform agnostic. So our solution is system agnostic, and so that it's portable. And if the county decides to transition from Oracle to Hexagon EAM or another CMMS system, our model will transition with you seamlessly and integrate into your future workflows without needing to start over or repurchase some functionality. Next. And this is our step-by-step approach for delivering the model and training your staff on using the model and interpreting the results to make defensible infrastructure decisions. And we anticipate that we can achieve an accelerated schedule of about 6 to 8 months by overlapping tasks, as we've shown in this graphic. I want to point out that the 2 to 3 month duration for data review and preparation assumes the quality of your data is relatively good, but this assumption is based on the impressive maturity of the county's asset management program. And then also overlapping, you'll see overlapping model development and pilot testing. This represents our approach to fine-tuning the model based on pilot test results and the county's preferences. And other reasons why we can provide an accelerated schedule while maintaining quality. These were touched upon earlier, but I just want to recap. We have industry experts leading each step. These experts are supported by a deep bench of specialists. We have proven predictive modeling program. And within that program, our team has worked together so many times that we're going to be able to hit the ground running. And we aren't standing up a new platform. And lastly, I am a seasoned project manager, and I am a technical expert in exactly this type of project. And speaking of technical experts, I'm going to hand this over to Chris to talk about the technical basis for our modeling approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. You're making me blush, everybody. But the evolution of predictive models are a fascinating area to work on, and we've been working on it for a long period of time. You'll see them documented in the first version of M77. We call them desktop assessments, and we just finished the second version, which has probably greater advancement in the analytical side of things we do than in the tools themselves, that we can go and look at things, and that's quite remarkable. The desktop assessments we have and how they've evolved are looking at, the classic asset management, likelihood and consequence of failure. We'd assume that you understand the consequence side, and the likelihood is a very important side. For small diameter pipes, basically the world of 12-inch and under, it is to drive rehab, because the failures can tell us something about condition and the deterioration process. In the large diameter pipes, we need to take the same data and put on a different set of lenses, because we can't have those fail. So we use the understanding of the deterioration process to drive condition assessment. And then you have all sorts of curves thrown at you over time, and that's why short and long-term integration. But we used to do what were called weighted criteria models, qualitative stuff. Just basically we knew it had something to do with age and history of breaks, and that was work that we did in a model. The newer models that we work with, because of computing powers, are quantitatively driven. So the fundamental thing to understand is that pipes don't just fail because they're old, or they fail by design. They last exactly as long as we designed them for, even though we inadvertently maybe design them for different periods. They fail by design. And when you go look at them, that's really, really important. The basic objectives of a predictive model is typically to model the deterioration process and the intervention process. And there's two sets of lenses you need to do that. You certainly need to look at it maybe on a stick-by-stick basis, but you also have to look at the system overall. Everybody throws different curves at us in asset management, a paving program, other things, the communication of it, those are all tools. So the things that we put in a model are eras and deterioration drivers, things that can impact that. We'll talk about an analytical process in a moment because it's a really important differentiator between how we look at these. But two sets of lenses we put on. One is kind of the what you get, and that upper graph is the orange line will always be our failure objectives. The amount of money we throw at it is on the y-axis, and the resulting failures on the other side. And then we have all different forms of treatment. And we have to look at that system-wide because that's a holistic view of everything. But we run real programs. So we also need that discrete view of the system in the lower graph of understanding condition as best we can on a stick-by-stick. And we'll not know on a stick-by-stick basis, but typically deterioration process will put us in the right neighborhood, and it will guide us from a practical perspective. And if you work on a solid inventory and operating conditions, you can build a very powerful model. But in real life, they're as powerful, and as good as the process used to build them in the raw data. But you can improve them over time, look at shortcomings, and build some very, very powerful models. Really, three types of models that we talk about as multivariable models. The type 1, it enamors people, I think, and if I speak bad about it, I apologize. But you will hear words like neural networks, boosted trees, random forest type of iteration techniques. These are scary things to me from a practical. The last two at least relate to regression form of analysis, but a neural network is a very scary form of analysis to try and do predictive model forward. You can model a period very accurately with it, maybe in a context of one set of data, but a very scary type of technique. And typically that they're done is that they're very sensitive to the GIS data you have. You could not sit there and look at large diameter pipe because you're not really modeling the deterioration process. And the types of models that we focus on would be type 2 and 3, which are really the same type of model. It's just relative to the type of pre-screening you do of how much machine learning drives the process versus how much brute force you put into it. It's a balance of that. It is the intent of the output is to answer questions like what you get, optimization, and to be able to address both your small and large diameter pipe, and that's very, very important. The models will vary based on the data and what drives the process. Typically, we start with era-based cohorts because the standards and that evolved for people didn't necessarily get older pipe is not necessarily bad, but older pipe from the wrong era can be a big, big vulnerability. So we look at these era-based cohorts. Pressure is often significant and a very useful thing. And if we're modeling something like a corrosion process that breaks down materials, the soil data in the USDA, I'm a Canadian and I'm envious of the USDA data set because it is a very, very comprehensive set of all 50 states in the US territories of understanding the geological conditions or the drivers, the chemistry, electrochemistry of the soil. The other thing we have to understand is that we'll draw a line through a period, but there's a phenomenon known as secondary effects, as this material may age, but if we don't understand the other driver that literally causes a failure, that's a very important effect to model to truly understand. We can't predict that going forward, but it helps us understand that we've got the deterioration process modeled right. Ferrous metals, PCCP, AC pipe, all things in your inventory, some copper pipe, whether it's on your list or not, are all things that are common materials that have, conventional type of material degradation, some form of corrosion that break them down, and they're quite easy to understand and model. Thermoplastics are a different beast, and you have thermoplastics in your inventory that you shared with us, and thermoplastics we have seen in areas. Thermoplastics can be very, very good products made correctly, but they're a lot more complicated to understand. they fail by a phenomenon known as slow crack growth, and that is a scary thing, because you need to know about the original resin quality and the extrusion and the wall stress in the pipe. And that's a unique phenomena. In the screening process that we do here, it's actually a relatively simple exercise that we can understand how much it matters, how, that pipe. We can sit there and overlay the pressures in your systems. It's the reason that we do hydraulic modeling, is that we look at the pressures relative to the wall thickness of the pipe. That tells us wall stress, and that tells us if we even have to care about how good the original extrusion quality is. So that's a very, very valuable tool. And if it is a valuable tool, the good thing about extrusion quality is there's tests that we can identify that help us understand the quality of it. It's like the DNA of the pipe. If you go and sample it opportunistically, you can understand sort of what that is. The scary thing about that type of phenomena is that stage 3 you see up there is this pipe at some point in time just turns to glass if it is a stress issue. And that is a scary thing, and it has a very, very ugly shaped curve if it ever happens. It doesn't happen commonly, but where it does happen, it's important to understand. Some examples from just the screening type of data we do. This is DeKalb County, and they had asbestos cement pipe failing, so we overlay the eras of pipe, the different eras. And AC pipe, for example, in the 1960s and 1970s, the standard actually reduced the wall thickness. So we see more modern pipe failing earlier. And when we looked at DeKalb County, we were able to look at it in the pressure zones and basically group and get good fits just by simplifying the stuff into eras and breaking it out into the pressures. In PVC, which had a lot of failures, and it's series PVC that is typically a problem, thinner walled pipe. And there was a study by Moser and Kellogg in the 1990s that looked at it, series PVC in the US and Canadian environments, saw that it had much higher failure rate. And it's simple. The wall stress is higher. The quality assurance was a little different. So those are important transitions that, we needed to do. And in DeKalb, we're able to find out that their series pipe and was an important distinctor, and also as well as the subtlety of the pressure zone it was in was an important thing to do. Ductile iron is in your inventory and was in their inventory, and is again a kind of a unique material because it's just corrosion. We think it's just corrosion. One of the things that happened to ductile iron is 1991, they changed from thickness to pressure class designation. Sounds like really good. It was a 350 PSI most of us bought. And what happened is in the small diameters that are susceptible to failure, they literally shaved 25% of the wall thickness off the pipe. What does that mean? Well, it means that these are all what I will call hazard functions. So the y-axis of these tells you the failures per unit length per year of life of the pipe. And these are all to scale, and it shows their 1960 and 70s and the 80s very, very, low, and it shows their post 1991 pipe at a very, very high type of risk moving forward. So it's a very insightful way to look at things and a very powerful set of lenses. So it showed that, in DeKalb, we saw 98% of the failures, which is pretty typical in 12-inch and under. It's why you need condition assessment for larger pipes. But it showed that, sitting silently, that nitrate ductile iron, which was going to take off in the future. It also showed the high pressure pipe, the high failure rates per unit lengths of, of those things that were there now and that would be mapping forward. From a practical perspective, the mathematics of failure that we use is what we call hazard functions. As I said, this is the city of Toronto. This shows you hazard functions data done for over 80,000 failures in Toronto, which is a big city, and we were able to get a very accurate model. We use typically Weibull functions, and you'll see these are good fits. You don't have to invent them. They're not scary. You can see the distinct pattern of different eras of pipe. They're all for different reasons that you can explain. The Weibull function, you can make it concave down or up. You do what the science tells you. As you get up to 12-inch, again, that scale on the Y shows you that by the time we get size effects, it's a different tag, a different time, a different process. One of the things that you shouldn't be doing, and it would really scare me when we go and look at analysis, is why I personally have an abhorrence for neural networks, is that this is, again, a data set we looked at with a neural network. This is in Salt Lake City, and taking age, diameter, and corrosivity. And if you think that graph on the right doesn't make any sense, you're exactly correct. And yet, from a statistical perspective, in the period of record, it had very, very high squared, looked like a good, like a good data set. But when you look at its predictive capacity, it's all over the map. It doesn't tell you anything about the future, and that is the horror. I didn't didn't invent this about neural networks. This is a 1993 article from the University of Florida and NASA, and it's the reason they didn't use, pardon me, South Florida, I apologize. Yeah, thank you for correcting me. I'm rolling. It shows you why they didn't use that type of mathematics to put people on the moon, and why, it's not a good way to understand the future. Polynomials and neural networks are scary things from, to model the future. And that's just that is the point. The secondary effects, as I said, is a very, very important aspect of this. This is the city of Toronto, and you'll see that's a typical statistical fit, a good statistical fit. And it's what the moisture, the soils, it typically is the last, kiss of death for the pipe. It's a very simple phenomena to try and model, but it is important, not that you can predict it going forward, but it lets you understand that you've got the deterioration, process correct. And that's the corrected model for Toronto, just by correcting for the, changes in moisture and the annual, in my part of the world, the annual amount of frost that you would see. And we've had good success with that. The other lenses you need are, certainly in GIS to be able to monitor these in, in little groups of how you program them. The beauty of the model that we work with when we use Monte Carlo simulations is it not only tells you when you're looking forward kind of how accurate your data is, you'll see confidence bands in terms of your data going forward, both in terms of the variance that you would reasonably expect in cost and the variance that you would expect in the failure prediction capacity of the model. And that's a very powerful way to look at your data, so you aren't overly, that you can be prepared for it, and it's only as good as your data, and you can fill in the holes, and that's what it allows you to do. Scenario analyzers in themselves are very critical. This is Colorado Springs data. We knew from the predictive model that they wanted to keep their failures at about the same level. And that meant that they had 180 miles of pipe that we told them that they needed to target. We looked at the difference of doing different types of lining techniques that could maybe be a little bit more innovative, get a little bit of bang for their buck. And we looked at the core problem that they had, which was corrosion. And if they went with programs that were more aggressive relative to corrosion mitigation, in essence, they could get about twice the coverage. So a very, very powerful type of scenario planner in the context of asking what if questions and what you do with this data going forward on the pipe that does fail, your small diameter pipe. In Toronto, they just wanted to be at 600 failures by 2040. It was just a lofty objective. They were up around 2,000, and ran scenarios to the point where what we realized is that in that scenario 4 is that they were spending plenty of money. They were going to be there in 5 or 6 years. And in what happened is I got a phone call from my client in Toronto telling me, well, you said it'll take 6 years. It only took 5 years to get there. And they were astounded. So in 2015, it was the original model we built. We basically did an update in 2022 and are working on a 2025 update. And that's just applying the secondary effects and the original algorithms. And in Toronto, we haven't had to change a single algorithm. We haven't had to change a single algorithm in Colorado Springs because we got the deterioration process right in the context of the key aspects of things. So these models have evolved into very powerful tools. You need the big picture look to, what am I doing? What, how you communicate. But it's imperative to model the deterioration process. You make it as complex as necessary, but not unnecessarily complicated. Eloquence is an attribute. It's a very, very, if it explains in a process. But the important point that that Tanya made is you don't work out of a black box. Understand what it is that you're modeling. Learn from the past and don't replicate failure. Those are really, really key issues. The last thing I was going to touch on, return her back to Sama, is just the data that you shared with us from yours. The first thing that stands out in your data is the fact that you've got these spikes about at the beginning of decade. And to people who look at data, that suggests that you've lumped a whole bunch of data that's unknown. So unknown data can be a really, really critical thing to things like ductile iron because you're modeling a corrosion process. In thermoplastics, they're less significant. You can sit there and exercise science, and the ramifications of them a little different, but they're very critical in materials like AC or materials that exhibit deterioration. Those plastics, like I said, are complex beasts. The other thing that's in here is that it may not be a big chunk of your inventory, but the ductile iron, to understand the era effects. Did, in the post-1991 era, what is the real exposure condition? Was there corrosion protection? What's there? And then the last thing that's kind of buried in there is in fact just the, your large diameter, your PCCP and stuff in there. And that, because of the way it's modeled, is actually is something that is still technically feasible as long as you kind of know the birth year of it and its exposure conditions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Samer to just offer a little closure.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a limited time here, but I really want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with us today. I always learn from Chris every time I hear him. He's phenomenal. So he presented an approach for you that is really transparent and proven, but more importantly, evolves with your needs over time. So you don't really need to purchase a third-party platform to pay subscription for that and be at risk. But what I want to say is, if that's what you want to do, there's nobody better than us to guide you through that process and make sure you have the right platform and set up correctly for you. So with that, I really appreciate the partnership. We're looking forward to working with you and look forward to the opportunity to work with you on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go on to the question portion, 15 minutes. I'll start. You guys answer your first question.
My first question would be, on those decadal large spikes, how would you handle that in the model? And how would it impact the model?
I can take that question. The spikes, and it's not unusual to have them if they're unknown data, as I said, if they're largely thermoplastics, then the nature of the degradation process with thermoplastics is averaging them out over a period of time is not going to matter because of the statistical side of it. The ductile iron in the context of that is significant in terms of its accuracy, and all you can do is refine it, because you can refine it over a period of time. The biggest spikes you have on the ductile iron side are the further back we go. It depends on the era. From a practical perspective, the 1990 spike and the 2000 spike, which are smaller on the ductile iron, would be less significant, as actually kind of typically more modern day. So it'll depend on the material that is associated with it. But aside from letting the failure data in the small diameter tell you what it is, because the failure data will actually inform you of the distribution over time. It's not ideal. It's, knowing birth year and knowing material type is the best, but it is, the failure data speaks to you, so it will correct itself over time, depending on the material that you model.
Thank you. Other questions?
I have what historically over all the projects you've worked, how could you measure your success in that? Is it the number of reduction of breaks? If you maybe put a percentage on that, what our expectations might be as far as reducing the efforts to fix broken pipes?
Did you hear that, Chris?
Yeah, I believe so. It's how do you measure accuracy with it, eh? And I'll talk about it because this is very, very important. It's very important to measure accuracy in the context of forward-looking, like the degree of fit. And the sad thing is that we can fit to data and build an algorithm that is like that neural network algorithm that is perfect. The important thing is how accurate is the model going forward. One of the things that come out of the technical approach that we do is understanding the process you're trying to model, so it's easy to adjust it going forward. But as I said, to me that's what you want a predictive model for, is to model the future. So the way that we have measured success is to revisit the algorithms, moving forward with our clients. And like I said, the city of Toronto wasn't a fluke, because the city of Colorado Springs has literally never had to. We're working with them on an update, but their predictive model is working well. We don't have to change the algorithms. We don't have to change that. So understanding on the failure side how that is predicting, is accurately predicting the future is very critical. On the condition assessment side, it is very important, but it also, again, it lets you understand eras. And we did the screening for Tampa Bay water going back 2012. I think we finished it the same, myself and Jim Davidson, who were on our team. And we used it to guide their condition assessment program. And we used it in traditional, the same type of techniques we would use here. And the feedback we got from them over 10 years of monitoring the condition assessment report is the prioritization they gave them. They, it protected them from the unexpected failure, and the pipes that we led them to had a higher incidence of, of pipes that they randomly looked at otherwise. So success is Mary, in what the future delivers. I know that's a big leap of faith for you, but it's the reality of a predictive model, is that I can calibrate it, and it's important to calibrate it, but I have to be able to explain to you the process we're monitoring, and you would verify that going forward.
Thank you.
Could I ask just if I could follow up with one other thing, and it's a really important thing, is that in these networks, if someone comes to you and shows their validity in terms of the value, of their measure of success, if their measure of success is the number of pipes they've predicted that haven't failed, that's a really flawed calculation. Because the reality is that when you go look at these networks, deterioration is very localized. And so I can tell you, without even doing anything, I can if I include the pipes that aren't breaking and I'm just trying to predict those, I'll be 90% accurate right off the hop. So it's it's very, very important that the way that you measure it is in true, focused failure reduction, or, the accuracy of it to model it. And it's not some technique that is just limited by the stuff that you're looking at, and, and by something that doesn't matter in the context of it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Drew? Question?
Have you had that question on the spikes today, so how that would be addressed? So you kind of captured it.
Right, yeah, so that's been one of our major questions is, how would the data spikes be addressed? And how would you, I guess, do you distribute them evenly over the decade, or, how does that function in the model?
Well, it's with our technique and by modeling it in the manner we can, the failures themselves, like it is, I would be the last person to tell you that I want data that doesn't know the year it happened. Okay, so I would rather have the real answer. But on small diameter pipe, exactly correct. But on small diameter pipe, if you're modeling it in iron, actually it corrects itself very, very well. It gives you the hint, it tells you what year it is, because you can basically, by stabilizing the model to reflect, the better fit for the deterioration process, you will proportion them reasonably so over a decade. The fact that you've got them at least lumped into decades is much better than I've worked in places where they just put it in one box, unknown. Okay, unknown's not that great. If you've got at least broken down the decades and you have enough failures, if you don't have failures, then that's not a problem, because you can sit there and it is relatively insensitive to it, because the deterioration rate is quite low. And as I said, with something like ductile iron, if that's it is actually the more current data, the stuff that you have less unknowns, that's there. With thermoplastics, because the nature of the process is one that you would go out, if it is a legitimate risk, you can quantify that in other means, just by looking at some of the tests I suggested in terms of, taking some samples. The beauty of like the bad part of plastic is if it's not made right, it has these propensity for slow cracks to develop. The good news is that it's DNA, it's stamped in the pipe. So a pipe that's 50 years old, I can go take a sample of it, and we can understand how well or how poorly it was made, and that would give you some insight into the future.
We're also discovering and getting a better understanding of SDR-21 and trying to isolate some of that. As well as the PCCP, the installation dates and the type of material that was included in that, as well as the SDR-21. So, we're learning, and but when they came to me and said, well, let's look at SDR-21, that's the whole county. We can't do that. So
understood. Yeah.
We're blocking out some of the age, looking
Yep.
at older pipe, because we know that those material compositions were poorer than some of the newer C900 types of material.
And then there's the other aspect of that you mentioned that I think is good is that for PCCP, the sensitivity screening is literally getting it in the right decade.
Yes.
So you know what I mean? So getting it in the right
Yes.
decade for PCCP is just fine. Okay,
Right.
because we're not, you know what I mean? Like you're using it to screen. So getting PCCP in the right decade is plenty. And honestly, a very little bit of work on the, on the condition assessment side by structuring your condition assessment program, it will fill in the gaps really clearly. It will put in, it'll put the wire type, it will answer the rest of the questions. Like the DR21 one is a tougher one, but it is a question of quantifying, how big a deal is it? And that's why the pressure screening that I showed has been a very valuable tool to guide people on how accurate you have to be with the year. And that's why that's a pretty simple way to, if you at least know the DR of it, that's very simple. That's very important. And that will tell you the wall stress, that's there. It's a pretty simple calculation. And that tells you how, again, the portions of your network that you run at high wall stress would prioritize, I need to look at these more because they're more vulnerable and it matters. And the areas at low wall stress, in essence, quite frankly, you could be quite wrong and it's not going to matter. It won't affect your prediction going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
A question on actual deliverables. The tool that you're going to deliver to us, is that a dynamic tool that we'll be able to keep updated with new pipes that we install and replace moving forward?
The answer would be yes. And I'll let Tanya do the tail end of it. But the beauty of it is, like in the world, if my screen's still on there, how you extract the data is up to you. This is Colorado Springs. They use Power BI, and that's kind of their view of the world. But the tool that we deliver is built on working with you to build it on your systems for how you ask the questions. It is quite portable. It can sit on it's not another piece of software. It's the brains behind how you extract data out of Esri. It's the questions that you want to ask it. And it's how you visualize and how you manage the data. And we work with you on that. So is there something to add to that, Tanya, or did I not butcher that too badly? So you're on mute.
No, you didn't butcher it. And, this dashboard is an example for, from Colorado Springs, but we'll be working with you to understand what kind of user interface you want. This was with Power BI, which is wouldn't be an additional investment for you, for us to use that. And you're going to own it, the model. You're going to own it, and you're going to understand it, and it's going to do what you need it to do, and it's going to report how you want to, the information you want it reported, and how you want it reported, how you want it to look like.
And, when you have new assets, as you build further developments and you put new assets in there, just put the assets in the model with the same type of way we did it for the very big, so it doesn't really change anything. And like Chris says, once you build the analytics behind it, you put it in there, just run it the same way. And for many clients, they didn't have to do it for 10 years, and they came back like, oh, it still works the same thing.
Nice.
And the mantra that I have, and I live and I know to be correct, is we're always going to find different ways to go look at the data, but good data structure, and that's stuff that Tanya works on and leaves and breathes. Good data structure is technology independent. So you're going to find different ways of asking questions and different burning things that you will learn over time. But in essence, the data structure, and that's one of the things we work with, is your ability to go ask these questions. Good data structure is technology independent. And that's a pretty important mantra to live with from the asset management side.
Probably have time for one more question. About a minute and a half.
Anybody? I think you've answered all of our questions, and I really appreciate you coming in and doing this. This has been, very fruitful for us to better understand your organization and how you would actually go about putting all of this together. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's important for us because me and Tanya live here. This is our county. So we're gonna do it right. And that's why we're here, right?
Great, great.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
both for
you.
coming on vacation to talk to us.
Yeah, sorry to intrude upon your.
No,
vacation,
no, no.
but thank you.
I'm
It's
sorry.
okay, they're getting a raise. It's okay.
They're getting,
I'm only 50 floors up in the city of Detroit, so we're okay. And I'm looking across the river at Canada, so yeah, how much, how much better could it be? So thank you very kindly for letting us come in this way. So much appreciated.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tanya.
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. That will conclude the oral presentations for AECOM for RPS 25-00208. Pay attention to the recording, which will be posted online.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.